Hey everyone, and welcome back to the live stream. If you are here live, drop a comment letting me know where you are coming from. And if you are on our replay crew, hit me up with a hashtag replay so I know who is on the Contempo Coding live stream replay crew. Today, we're going to be diving into some of your top questions about what's going on with 2026 changes, how we're going to prepare for the CPC exam training, what content I have planned, and of course, as always, some Q&A. Make sure that you are liking the stream, you hit the like button, and you subscribe and share it with a friend. Without further ado, actually, with further ado, I gotta bring in the Instagram crew because it can't all be easy and seamless throughout all of the platforms, right? So we have to bring in our crew from LinkedIn, from YouTube, from Instagram, from Facebook. I got to make sure that I'm hitting live so that Instagram goes. And the TikTok crew has to come in totally separately. I still have not figured that out. Still not figured that out, my guys. But in any case, let me double check to make sure I have got the right microphone setting because I would hate to have bad audio. There we go. We're running good today. Camera's looking good, mics are looking good. You know, we try to avoid the technical difficulties where we can. So hey everyone, glad to see you today on Monday. We're streaming today from the Chaos Cave at home. My family is my husband's a little under the weather. So because of that, I want to kind of stay home just in case he needs me for anything. Crossing my fingers my kid doesn't get sick. I had my flu shot this year, which if that's what's going on, like I should be good. I'm hoping. I don't know. There's always those new strains out there. But in any case, let's get started with today's live stream. So you can see everything correctly. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to the live stream. Here today to talk about all things medical coding, career certifications, training, etc., etc., etc. Have some cool stuff planned. I was working the late hours last night, getting some of those shorts put together. One of my big goals for 2026 is to put together a lot more CPC training content, a lot more demonstration content, and of course mix that in with like the things that I always have on repeat: how to get CEUs for 2026, how to become a medical coder in 2026, and job tips and all that good stuff. Yeah, I'm planning to be a little bit more out and about in 2026. I'll say that. Got some things working with different conferences. I'm 90% sure I'm going to HealthCon this year. I think maybe regionals too, but I'm trying to figure out what other conferences I need to go to. And I kind of put some feelers out on LinkedIn and didn't get a lot of responses. So I don't know. Like I have friends that are in the industry and they're out speaking at a million different things a year. And I'm like, I haven't been paying close enough attention to know where where the hot spaces are to be. You know what I should do is go back on LinkedIn and see all the people that were like doing promotions at all the different conferences and see if that's places I need to be too. That's what I'm thinking. The more conferences I can do though that are closer to Disney, either World or Land, that'll kind of help me out. I am actually heading down to Florida in a couple of weeks for my birthday trip and also to hook up with Tony Elholmes from Alpha Coding Experts, and I are hooking up and doing some promotions and stuff together this year. So it's going to be a good one. In any case, question coming in. Can I have a 2025 ICD-10-CM book with a 2026 CPT and 2026 HCPCS book for my 2026 exam? I don't know if I need to buy the new 2026 ICD-10-CM book. Well, so it would be recommended. It would be probably better if you had the 2026 book in case there are any questions that you get that have an ICD-10-CM code on there that have been updated. However, it is not required. So what the APC officially says. And let me just let me bring my screen up over here, because I think it's always better when I can show you exactly where it comes from versus just like, hey, this is what Victoria said. So if we go on to let's do what years books are allowed. If we go on the website, and let me get the screen share going. All right. TikTok, I'm sorry. Oh, TikTok, I'm sorry, you guys won't be able to see this. Okay, so share screen. We're going to share my whole window over here. And when we look here, what it says is, what year's books should I use? So it says APC exams are based on the current calendar year code sets. It's strongly suggested you use the current year's books. APC exams are updated every January for the new code sets. You may utilize books from the preceding year, the current year, or a combination of both, which is what your situation is. You have some that are 2026 and then one that's 2025. However, only one copy of each is permitted. So you can bring a mixture if you have like a 2026 CPT and the others are 2025, that's fine. But you can't bring like two copies of the CPT book, essentially one for 2026 and one for 2025. So yeah, you can use 2026 books all throughout 2026 or 2025 books. You can no longer use 2024 books because it's either the current calendar year or that 1 year prior. So you're not allowed to, you're not permitted to use anything older than that. Yeah, I think, that has slid by in the past on technicalities, because of maybe people not understanding some of the rules, especially when we had local chapters proctoring. But, that's what the official guidelines state now. And, I think we just don't want to have that door open for people to have complaints about their exam results. And they're like, well, why did you even let me, use a book from 2023 or whatever? So I think that's a fair boundary for them to say, yeah, you can use either the current calendar year or one prior. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Actually, afternoon here. I'm in East Coast time, so it's 12:09. Question coming in: what is the total fees for the CPC certification exam, including membership, books, and exam attempts? So actually, we can take a look at that. Roughly, let me think. CPC certification exam, I want to say if you get one attempt, it's $400. It might have gone up this year. There was something going on with a special that I saw with books and exams and stuff, and I'm just like, so like the pricing was weird. So I don't know, maybe they increased the price this year. So it's a good idea if we actually take a look. Books, I can tell you probably printed versions are usually around $300. So let's take a look. We can run some math here. Certification, view all certifications. Actually, let's do plan and schedule your exam. Buy an exam voucher. Oop, let's get off the screen share just for a second so that you don't all potentially see my login information. I don't think it'll blast anything suspicious, but we never know. You guys aren't going to be happy. The price has gone up. One exam voucher for the CPC exam is currently $425. Two is $499. So I mean, you might as well just get the two. Let me get my calculator up here though. Let's see. So if we buy the exam, $425, membership just went up too. Did we ask about membership? Including membership, books, and exam attempts. Okay, so $425 for the exam voucher. Actually, let's just say $499 because who's going to buy the one attempt, right? Let's just be a little a little luscious with what we're getting, I guess. So let's say we do the 2 attempts, 499. Yeah, High by saying $400 one attempt. Some of the other certifications maybe, like some of the specialty certifications are less than that, but I'm looking at the AAPC website right now, right this second, and it says $425, at least if you're taking it in the USA for one attempt, $499 for 2. If we wanna add the books on, if we want print books, $244.99. Actually, let's just build the card out together. Books, I already just renewed my membership, so I can't hold on. I hope that doesn't display my address. I'm gonna move that down for a second. My apologies. There we go. I don't want it to show the cart and be like, "Here, we should deliver it right here to your address," which is exactly what it did. So I'm glad that I moved that down. So that comes out to $787.99. I just renewed my membership last week. Let's see. And membership. That's not what I want. Is 200 and change. I know it was 222. I'm not sure if it went up now for 2026 because I added $222. So 222. So let's see. We have, if we add all that together, the certification exam, membership, and books, it'll be $1,009.99. So that's how much it'll cost if you want to buy the print books, the 2 attempt bundle, and membership. Be an extra $1,000. Now, keep in mind, you can, when you redeem your exam voucher, elect to use ebooks. You don't have to have the printed books, but if you want printed books, then of course you're going to have to glitching right now. You're gonna have to pay for them essentially, yeah. So let's see here. We're going in through. It looks like a super chat came in here from CEO Sandy. Thank you very much for the super chat. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with the exam fees right now for 2026. So if you bought in 2025, you probably got a good deal. I know they were running some Black Friday specials there towards the end of the year. And sometimes they do. I don't know if maybe right now they have a New Year special where they can bring you in. Right now, it looks like we're having full training specials, Codify, and webinars. I actually added on the webinars to my membership renewal because they give you a discounted fee when you do that. And I like having the webinars because I don't want to run into a situation where I'm like, oh no, crap. I need some continuing education credits for the end of the year and can't find them somewhere. I'm gonna check in quick on the Instagram crew coming in. Getting a lot of questions about medical coders who are located outside the US, that they are in India or Pakistan, and they want to know how to get a job in the United States. So what I want to say first and foremost is that one of the primary reasons that American healthcare companies would like to outsource to companies such as India or the Philippines or Pakistan is because of cost savings. So if you are someone who is living in those countries and wants to work for a United States company, they are not going to pay you what they will pay coders who are domestically here in the United States, because the only reason that they're outsourcing is for cost savings. There's no shortage of medical coders here in the United States. It's just that they want to save some money there. So regardless of where you're located outside of the United States, they're not going to likely pay you what they would pay United States coders. I have a question here coming in from Iran. So there are companies out there that do outsource to countries such as that. However, what I will say is there have been a lot more privacy concerns with sending personal health information to these countries. If someone's images, like their mammogram or private health information, gets leaked, a lot of healthcare organizations, they make these contracts that they feel that that outsourced company will be held liable, and it's turning out in a lot of the legal cases that that healthcare organization is the one that's being held liable for those leaks. And a lot less companies are willing to take the risk of lawsuits if that personal health information is leaked. It's a lot more complicated when it is outside of the US versus within the US, where we have regulations as far as HIPAA. Like the international laws, it just complicates everything. So I don't have a listing of companies that like they hire or outsource coders from or offshore medical coders, but there are opportunities out there to do that. But you will not make what a US-based coder would make. Mouse says, "Good morning. I'm starting my medical billing and coding course. What is your advice as far as going through the course? I don't know if it makes a difference. I do have experience in the medical field." The way that they lay out the course is the exact way that you should do it. Most courses are structured in such a way that you start with learning a little bit about medical terminology, if that's a prerequisite for you. Then you move on to kind of the business of healthcare or things about insurance companies. What is a Medicare plan? There's a Medicaid plan. What is commercial insurance? What is TRICARE? Things about submission regulations for insurance claims. And then we start getting into the coding section of it. Most of them start with ICD-10-CM, and then we get into a little bit of HCPCS, a little bit of CPT. Some courses don't cover a lot of what we refer to as HCPCS or HCPCS level 2 because it's very intuitive when you know CPT. And we would have a lot of complaints from students for courses when they would have to buy a HCPCS book, and then they had like one chapter on HCPCS and they covered it in class for like 1 hour. So a lot of organizations, because they were having so many complaints of students going, "I can't believe you made me pay $90 for this HCPCS book, and we only barely touched it. And, there was nothing on it on my certification exam except for 3 questions. And I don't know, so some places, they don't even provide a HCPCS book. They just have like snippets and stuff so you can look stuff up. So yeah, that's the general flow of things. I feel also once you've completed any training, whether it be through AAPC or Preppy or AMCI or Danita or Awesome Medical Coder Academy or whatever is out there, spend a couple of weeks specifically going over CPC certification prep. Like really get down into the nitty-gritty and go, "Hey, like this is oh my gosh, I just had a panic attack. I thought I was live streaming from my personal account." And really get down into the nitty-gritty. And cover like, this is how I'm preparing for the exam. I know that this is what the exam platform looks like. I know how to navigate it. I know how to flag my questions. I know what the way the questions are going to be formatted, the flow of the exam. Like get familiar with all of that for a couple of weeks right before you take your exam. I would not recommend just like, "Hey, I finished my training. Now I'm going to sit for the exam." I would really focus a couple weeks on specifically certification prep. One thing I will mention in regards to certification prep, if you're like, "Victoria, I'm about to sit for my exam, like I need to know what video of yours like I should watch. Like what's the one thing above and beyond anything else like you recommend?" And what I'm going to tell you is there's a video on my channel that a lot of people have said that they are extremely grateful that they watched right before they took their exam. And it's this video right here. It is the first on the CPC review playlist. TikTok, I'm going to flip you around so you guys can see this too. Give me a sec because you guys are, that's how I stream from TikTok. It's this video right here that says CPC. It's the CPC exam tips video, and it's called Most Missed CPC Exam Questions. So that is absolutely the video that you should watch when you are preparing for the CPC exam. It covers a lot of the things that people miss. And these are not like this question is going to be on the exam. It's like this concept is going to be on the exam. They may have 5 different variants of questions on this concept, so there's a good chance that you're gonna get one of them. So we're not memorizing the question, we're understanding this concept so that when you get a question that maybe looks similar to this one, you'll know how to respond to it. The CPC exam is not one where you can, like, go online and buy someone who says that they have real CPC exam questions and answers. I've seen that before. That is a absolute lie. The integrity of the exam is protected so heavily that there is no way that they would have access to those questions. If you were to purchase those questions, I feel like you would probably even be putting yourself at risk of losing your membership and thus your certifications and your ability to even sit for the CPC exam again. Um, and when we think about the way that the CPC exam is structured, it's randomized. So that you have 100 multiple choice questions, but it's not like it used to be where they were just like, hey, you have exam variant A, B, and C, and you're going to get one of these. They now have everything electronic. There is an exam bank. This exam bank has like 1,000+ questions on it. And they're kind of graded. They're like the easy ones, the moderate difficulty, and then the harder questions. And they make sure that everyone has the right mix, right? So they're not going to, kind of randomize it and risk that someone might get like 100 easy questions. So out of those 1,000 questions, you're going to get randomized 100 of them. So there's no way that you can memorize all of these 1,000 questions that could potentially be on your certification exam. And that's why it's really, really important to focus on concepts. Even the answers themselves, I don't want to say are randomized, but they reorder them. So it's not like, oh, if I see this question, I know it's going to be answer B, because it might be B on your test, but on someone else's test, that answer might be C. So everything is really mixed around in such a way that it really prevents memorization of certain questions. Oh, I will see people on there. I see it on Facebook all the time. I think there was a group a couple weeks ago that someone alerted me. They're like, "Hey, they have your picture on their header for their Facebook group, and in there they were like, "Hey, I'm going to sell you the real CPC exam questions that are on the actual exam." Scam. 100% a scam. Cheyenne is asking, can we still use 2025 books for the CPC exam? Absolutely, you can. You can use 2025 or 2026. You can only have one copy of each, though. So you can only have one CPT book. So you can commingle if you have a 2026 CPT and a 2025 ICD-10-CM, but you can only have one version of CPT, one version of ICD-10-CM, one version of HCPCS. VDragon8180 asks, do we need to gain AAPC membership prior to the CPC exam, or can we do the membership at any point after getting certified? In order to sit for the CPC exam or any certification with the AAPC, you do have to be a member of the AAPC. There are ways to get discounted memberships if you are a student. You can't do it if you're self-study, but if you're enrolled in a program through a community college or a school of some kind, you can get a discounted student membership, and you can purchase discounted student memberships up until you have a certification with the AAPC. So not only do you need to be a member to take those certifications, you also have to pay membership dues every single year in order to maintain those certifications. So if at any point you decide, I don't want to be a member of the EEPC anymore, you lose your certifications. Now, there are some stipulations as far as if you want to then renew later on. Like, say you're like, you know what, I forget medical coding. I'm not going to do it anymore. And then a couple weeks later, someone calls you and is like, hey, we've got a job for you. Submit all your medical coding certification numbers and stuff like that. There is some reinstatement stuff through the AAPC. They have it on their website. But basically, you would have to pay any back membership dues you have. I think they let you do it for up to a couple of years after terminating your membership. You have to get the back CEUs that you would have due and pay some, I think maybe a penalty fee or something like that. So that is an option, if that situation would happen. But yeah, you have to be a member in order to sit for the exam. So if you don't want to be a member until you're like ready to sit for the exam, you absolutely can do that. You can wait until you're like ready to sit for your CPC exam and then become a member and then purchase the CPC exam. I have a question here, very informative. Where can we all find details about HickPicks? I have a video on my channel where I talk about HickPicks. I actually should probably make a HickPicks playlist because I've done a couple more videos on that. But let me show you where you can find some of the HickPicks videos on the channel. So there's a little magnifying glass right here when you go to the main channel page. Type in HickPicks. Right there, it will take you to a lot of the videos that I have on HickPicks. HickPicks coding for beginners, HickPicks level 2 coding, HickPicks tabbing. I'm actually going to be doing an updated one of those soon because the HickPicks ebooks have come out. I have not gotten the print books yet. And I think I recently did some different cases, HickPicks coding practice walkthrough. So that's where you can find all of the videos that I have completed in relationship to HickPicks level 2 coding. Question coming in from TikTok. What is the limit in how old books you can use, 1 or 2 years? It has to be either current calendar year or 1 calendar year prior. So for 2026, you can use the 2026 books, or you can use 2025 books or any combination of them, as long as you only have 1 copy of each. So 1 CPT book, 1 ICD-10 CM book, 1 HickPicks book. BC Beef says, have you done inpatient coding? I have an inpatient coding certification. I have never worked as an inpatient coder. So I know enough to be dangerous about inpatient coding. I know some PCS. Hopefully this year I can get some PCS stuff constructed for the channel, probably introductory level, but I am certainly not at any level an expert in inpatient coding. By the way, if you are interested in a career in medical billing and coding and you're wondering, hey, Victoria, can you tell me more about what is your recommended training option? Like if you were telling a friend or a colleague where to go for medical coding training, where would you recommend? And I would say to you that you can check out Preppy. You can find out more about Preppy on their website at preppy.org. And if you pay in full, you can save $100 with code Contempo. Preppy is an on-demand medical coding training. They are budget friendly. So they keep everything affordable to get all of the training you need for medical billing and coding. They are geared towards the CPC certification exam. So they do fulfill the requirements to get 80 contact hours to remove 1 year off your apprenticeship status as a CPC. They do not, however, include your APC membership and exam fee. So that is separate because not everyone wants to take the CPC exam. They might get to the end of their program and decide, I don't really want to get into medical billing and coding. This isn't what I thought. Or maybe they just wanted to get into billing, which does not have requirements for certifications. So yeah, that's my spiel about Preppy. Hoping to bring the founder of Preppy on soon to the channel to do some content in regards to some of their externship opportunities, which is something that a lot of organizations do not offer and is a very big benefit of signing up with Preppy. Ashley says, what is included in your membership? I'm on chapter 12 right now, looking to help pass my exam first time if possible. I do not offer some of the bells and whistles memberships that a lot of other places do. So I'm not doing tutoring. I'm not giving case studies. I'm not giving interviews or feedback or anything like that, or members only live streams at this point. So if you're looking for something that's going to assist you with medical coding training, I have on-demand videos, but my membership is mostly just to support the channel. Question says, is it possible to get a job as a medical coder now as AI is taking over all the fields? And replying, I disagree with you. I do not think that AI is taking over all of the fields at all. I think if you go on Reddit, they're going to doomsday you about everything. I think if you search for negative things on the internet, you're going to find a lot of it. And that's true of any industry. However, I do not think at this point that AI is taking over all the fields. I think if you talk to medical coders, you will see that AI is assisting them because of the incredible volume of healthcare consumption that we have right now. However, I do not think it is taking over. And I think that there is still a lot of medical coding positions out there. Where can I get the CPC certification syllabus? Let's take a look. I do believe they have it on the AAPC website. Ooh, let me empty out my cart there because I left in there the books and membership when we were calculating fees. Here we go. Certifications. Prepare for a certification. Let's see if we can find it on the AAPC website. Prerequisites. Prepare for the exam. Let's see if we have it on here. Overview. I know I used to be able to find it. Approved books. Let's see if we can find it. Experience requirements. Where does this take us? Fundamentals of medicine. I know it's on this website somewhere, but they move so much stuff around. That just takes us. Let me see if I can find it this way. Because the syllabus itself really hasn't changed much over the years. Now, this one looks like it might be a slightly older one, but I honestly don't think it's changed a lot since then. They cover, this is pretty much the structure of it. The business of medicine, review of anatomy, ICD-10-CM, CPT HCPCS modifiers, and then they go basically over each chapter of CPT. They save E&M for later on, even though it's the first listed chapter because it tends to be more difficult and needs some more class time to it. But if you just kind of go into Google and type in CPC preparation course syllabus, you should be able to find it that way. Victoria Shell says, I regret not going to Preppy. I'm enrolled in Portland Community College. I had problems with them starting medical coding A today, going for a certificate. Are there part-time jobs available? There are part-time jobs available in medical coding. They can be a little bit harder to find. They are out there. You can, when you are searching on Indeed.com or LinkedIn or anywhere where you're doing your job search, Google Jobs, you can oftentimes filter by part-time jobs. So while they are out there, it can be harder to find them. And it might be a little bit more limited versus full-time jobs. But I think that's kind of consistent with just about every field out there, or every kind of position out there. Do you have any opinions about the medical billing and coding program through Penn Foster University online? I don't have personal experience with it, so I really try not to comment about programs that I've not fully investigated or seen the ins and outs of. And I've heard all kinds of mixed things. I've heard great things, I've heard bad things, and everything in between about Penn Foster. I think a lot of times with programs, it really depends on what you're looking to put into it. There's some people that I know have gotten the greatest programs out there, but just didn't want to commit. So they didn't spend this time studying, and they weren't successful. And there's people who had kind of, bare bones programs, but they went out and did extra research and spent lots of time studying and looking things up and have done very well. So sometimes it really does come down to kind of what you personally are willing to put into it. Godly Poet asks, any advice for the CCSP? So the CCSP is through a HEMA, the Certified Coding Specialist Professional or Provider Based. I'm not an HEMA member. I have a micro credential through a HEMA, which I need to do an update video on the micro credential thing. But since I've not taken the CCSP, unfortunately, I really can't speak to like the specifics of what they are and aren't going to test on and how it would compare to the CPC. Kate V says, taking the CRC in 2026, when are companies usually hiring for risk adjustment positions? Let's take a look at some of the job boards and see what we got right now. Because usually, I mean, they do hire year round, but oftentimes it kind of ramps up starting in like June to January. But let's actually go and see what we can find right now in the job boards. Let's see what happens when we search CRC. If that, yeah, there's some other CRC credentials out there, not just in risk adjustment. Let's see. Risk adjustment coding, remote. We still have a good amount of risk adjustment positions out there right now. I found 100 plus jobs. So yeah, usually it's kind of towards that area, but we have a lot of people that are hiring now for risk adjustment full time. We do have here VMG risk adjustment coder CRC within 6 months. Ooh, I wonder what that. Okay, now my curiosity is piqued. CRC required must be obtained. Okay, I was a little worried by the way this was worded that it was going to be one of those things where it's like you can do this in as little as 6 months, and it pretends like it's a job, but it's really they're just trying to get you to pay them for training. But yeah, there's still quite a bit out there right now in risk adjustment. Fool the Cube 6060 says, first time here. I just got here. What questions are on the test? Are they multiple choice? Am I supposed to memorize specific codes or just how to find it quickly? So with the medical coding certifications, they're really not testing you so much on can you look up a code. They're testing you more on do you know how this code and this code integrate together? Can you code multiple lines of medical records, huge complicated surgical cases or anesthesia, office visits, minor surgical procedures? Do you know that if a patient comes in and they have a planned minor surgical procedure, that an E&M code is not separately billable unless there is a separately identifiable condition? How to attach modifiers. So there's a lot of that. When we want to know the breakdown of any of the certification exams with the AAPC, there's a great easy way to do that on the AAPC website. So what you're going to do is you go to certifications and go to view all certifications. So if we're looking to take the CPC exam, for example, we go to CPC, and then right there on that left-hand panel, there's a button that says taking the exam. We click on that. Now the trick here is we got to scroll. So we got to scroll almost halfway down, maybe even a little further, and it gives us the breakdown of the exam. So the CPC exam is 100 multiple choice questions. There's a little bit of talk that maybe at some point, possibly they might add some fill in the blanks. We're not there yet. So what the breakdown of the exam is, we can see we have 4 med term questions, 4 anatomy questions, 3 questions on compliance and regulatory, 7 coding guidelines, 5 questions on ICD-10-CM, 3 on HCPCS, and then 6 questions each on the different series of CPT, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, radiology, path and lab, medicine, E&M, but then only 4 questions on anesthesia, and then 10 cases. The cases are really more robust medical notes. So it might be a long surgery, it might be an ER visit, and it's going to be a patient who has maybe a couple different CPTs and a lot of different diagnoses going on. We have to figure out combination codes maybe. So they're more involved. They can be any mixture of CPT, ICD-10-CM, and HCPCS level 2 codes. They are all only 1 point. Every single question is only 1 point. So even if it's a quick med term question, that's 1 point. That case that you might be looking at, that's a surgery where the patient has 10 different diagnoses and they had 5 different procedures, is also 1 point, which is why it's really good to understand how to flag questions and come back to that, because you might get something and look at it and go, oh my gosh, like this is going to take me a while. And instead of sitting there and festering over it for 7-8 minutes, we'll flag that and come back to it and answer something else that's easier. That's only 1 point. Positive Mimi 7613 says, "What do we do with our old books, like ones from 2024?" There's a couple of options. There are some schools out there that meet in person, like my old college. We used to have the old books sitting on a bookshelf in the back of the room so that we could use them for practice. So there might be some schools near you that you can donate them to. Other than that, some people like to save them for a couple of years in case of an audit or something, but, other than that, recycle them. You can throw them in the recycle bin, just stick them in there, take the coils out, and recycle them. I've seen some people maybe do crafts with them, make wreaths and stuff, but that's I think what most people are doing. They either keep them for a couple of years and then recycle them. I think I only keep my current year and my prior year because I have a lot of different search tools and encoders and things that I can set it back multiple years. And if I want to know if a code was in existence or deleted or whatever, I can set my encoder programs that I'm searching with back a few years and do it that way instead of having to keep all of my books from year to year to year to year. CEO Sandy says, "Is it possible to get a job in the USA as a coder from India? What are the things we want to do?" So I talked a little bit about that maybe 20 minutes ago. So I would just rewind about 20 minutes in regards to living in another country and wanting to work for the USA. Question coming in from TikTok. Nikki Farmer says, "How hard is the coding test?" Well, that's kind of relative, to be honest with you. I think anything that is a goal for you and that is something you want to do is worthwhile, even if it's hard. I mean, if we think about something like even just working out, New Year's resolutions, people are like, "I wanna work out, I wanna get fit, I wanna get six-pack abs." Like, well, some people might have an easier time getting six-pack abs than other people, but, to some degree, it comes down to how much you're willing to work towards it and how much you really, really wanna reach that goal. As far as kind of like comparing it to things, I've heard people say that it was the easiest thing, not too many of them, and I've heard a lot of people say that it's pretty difficult. I think if you commit the time and you really wanna be a medical coder and you know that this is the career that you wanna get into and not just like, "Hey, I'm just looking for something quick I can do and easy and, that's gonna pay me a lot of money." Um, I think a lot of those type of people with those mindsets find it harder than maybe they thought it was gonna be. There's a lot of things that maybe you can learn in a weekend, like maybe, different Microsoft applications. Maybe you could learn some Photoshop in a week or so, but medical coding is really not like that. It's not something where you're just like, "Hey, I'm gonna pick this up and take this workshop, and now I'm certified as a medical coder." It takes most people, several months of dedicated studying, things you have to learn like MedTerm and anatomy and all of the different code sets. And it's not as simple as just like looking up a number like you would back in the day in a phone book. It really is understanding some complex regulations and integrations. And yeah, there are automations now with AI that they'll come in and maybe read a note and go, "We think it's this," but we still need a lot of human coders to navigate that. But I think it is worthwhile. Um, there are a lot of coders that I know that after just a couple of years are making 80, $90,000 a year working in auditing. There are also a lot of people that will complain and say, "You know what? I'm not going to make this switch because I don't want to start, kind of maybe lower than they would as an LPN." But um, I think ultimately it's worthwhile. You do have to make that investment. Have you had any employers asking you to bill or code unethically? So yes, that actually has happened to me. I was once working at a plastic surgery practice, and this particularly plastic surgery practice did a lot of post-bariatric body contouring. So patients that had lost a considerable amount of weight and now had a large hanging pannus, and when that pannus has lots of infections or, is causing complications or considerable irritation to the patient, insurance will cover removal of it. And I ran into situations where they were coding for the pannus removal, but then also coding for adjacent tissue transfer removal, stating that they had to create all of these extra flaps because these patients were so obese and had so much extra skin. But ultimately, regardless of where you came in or how much you removed and came into that same incision line, it was still the same code, maybe with a modifier that for increased procedural service, but definitely not an adjacent tissue transfer rearrangement. And they would bill these with huge quantities because it was all of this skin, and took it up the chain. Um, I was not allowed to meet with them, but someone else did, one of the directors, and they're like, "Oh, no, no, they explained it to us. They said they had to create all these extra flaps to come in and remove this pannus because this patient, had lost so much weight and so forth, and it's all on the up and up." And I didn't agree with it. I ultimately didn't agree with it. What I started doing was, during those cases, I would either comment on there extensively that this was the way that I was extracted based off of blah, 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 blah. And then I started looking for another job. Because while everyone else felt it was kosher, they said that Medicare was getting the claims and they were paying them, and they were like, I'm just like, no, I want nothing to do with this. Absolutely not. Interview questions after CPC certification exam, that is on the main channel page. So if you're ever curious if I have something on the channel, actually, let me come out of here and get into the channel page. If you're ever curious if I have a video on something like HCPCS, like modifier 51 versus 59, like certification exam interview questions, excuse me. What I'm going to say you should do is head over to the channel page. There's a little magnifying glass here. Sometimes, depending on your monitor size, you might have a little arrow that you need to scroll over. But here, if we go in and type in interview, I have medical coding interview process tips, how to find your first job, interview questions for new coders. So there are mock interviews, pre-employment examination insights, lots of information and stuff available there on the channel. So that would be where I would recommend. Do I recommend Coding Clarified? I'm not super familiar with Coding Clarified, so unfortunately I can't comment too much on that specific program. I am aware of it. I know who does the social media for it. But other than that, I don't know too many ins and outs of that particular program. Ashley says, I wanted to do the certification, but I'm a terrible test taker. I'm so nervous on the actual exam part. I think there's definitely ways to alleviate some of the anxiety. With the CPC, we have a lot of practice materials and practice exams. So I would recommend going in and putting yourself in as much of a mock exam environment as you can. Like, if you're going to take it via live remote proctor, go in, set up your computer and your room exactly as it would be needed as if it was exam day. Set the timer, tell everyone, like, get ready, like I'm going to be pretending that I'm taking the exam right now, and go through a practice exam as if you were taking the actual exam. It's going to get you that comfort level of, here's what I need to have as far as setup. Here's what isn't going to work. How am I going to flag the questions? So that's what I would recommend. Is there a certificate for cancer registry? Yeah. I actually attended a session at HealthCon, which is one of the reasons I love going to HealthCon. I think it was last year, where they talked about cancer registry and the certifications for that. A lot of similarities are held between working in the cancer registry and medical coding. In fact, I'm told that people who are hiring for tumor registry positions or cancer registry really like hiring people who've worked in medical coding because there are some similarities there. I'm not familiar exactly with the specific certifications for that. I know the AEPC does not provide them, so it would be a different organization. And I know they oftentimes like to look for other healthcare experience or some kind of more formal training in like healthcare information or something specific towards that. Crystal Quench says, I'm looking into getting the RAC micro credential. Is it worth it? So here's the status update that I can give you guys as far as the micro credentials with AHIMA. I obtained an AHIMA micro credential in risk adjustment coding back in, I want to say May or June, 2.5 years ago, about now. Got the micro credential. When they released it, it was very quick. There was no real outline of what would be on the exam. There was no training programs that they had available for it, no study guides, anything like that. And passed the certification. And at that time, they said that the revalidation period for the micro credentials through AHIMA for the one I had would be 1 year. That year came and went, and then they said, you know what, actually, we changed our mind. We're going to make all of them 2 years. So check back with us in 2 years for this micro-credential revalidation, and that's when we'll have all the information for you about what revalidation is going to look like, what the cost is going to be, what you have to do to keep this micro-credential. And then we got close to the end of that 2 years, and then I got an email go, you know what? Actually, we extended it. It'll be till the end of 2025. So, maybe like early December, we'll hit you up and let you know what this revalidation looks like. And at that point, still no training, still no study guides, nothing really to support these micro credentials other than, hey, give us the money to take the micro credential and we'll slap this micro credential down on you. And then I got an email from AHIMA in December, a few weeks ago, saying, you know what? We actually, we're reevaluating this. We want to make sure that we're providing you the best, process and training and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to just extend it for another year. Now, I know that AHIMA's had some issues over the past couple of years. Their members have expressed some disdain with them. What I surmise may have happened is that they put out these micro credentials as a way to compete with AEPC specialty credentials. Didn't really think out a lot of the training or support or revalidation and figured, hey, that's a future us problem. Just give us your money right now because we need the money. And then just kind of pushed it onto the back burner for a while. That's what I think may have happened based off of what I've seen. I can't say for sure. As far as the micro credentials, I have seen a couple of employers for like risk adjustment positions that want the RAC credential. My personal thought, though, is I would rather just go with the CRC for the AEPC unless you just are willing to fork out the money for the micro credential just to like say you have it. Victoria Shell says, I was an HIM specialist 15 years ago. Would that be helpful on my resume along with med coding certification and finding a job? Hell yeah, it would. You're a shoo-in if you had an HIM. So, like, I get it. Like, there's that a lot has changed in 15 years, but there's a good amount of stuff that hasn't changed in 15 years. And I don't think it would take too much to get up to snuff. Especially, I think the make or break is going to be how computer savvy are you? Like, if you're someone that's afraid to click the electronic medical record, then it might be a little bit more difficult. But I think that's definitely going to be a lot in your favor. Poignant Tail says, regarding apprentice removal, I'm aware that it has a 1 to 2 year work requirement, but do you know if this is how long you held that job or by hours worked? It is by how long. To the best of my knowledge, and actually it's a great idea to pull that up right now, is to the best of my knowledge is even if you're working like part-time, as long as you're working part-time for 1 year, that counts as 1 year. Let's see. Now, the only credentials that have the apprenticeship requirement are the CPC and the COC. Any other credentials with the AAPC, no apprentice requirement. So you could have 10 other credentials other than the CPC and the COC, and those wouldn't have an apprenticeship, but the CPC or the COC would. So if we look at some of the apprenticeship requirements here, let me X this out. I don't need Speechify up in my face right now. Let's see if I can zoom. Oh well. 2-year employment verification on the job experience. Submission requirements, employer verification of at least 2 years on the job experience using CPT, ICD-10-CM, and HCPCS Level 2 code sets. So your title does not have to be medical coder. It's just that you are using the code sets. But yeah, it really doesn't say anything about number of hours you have to work each week. It's really just like if you're submitting for, even if it's a 1-year verification and then Practicode, or 1-year verification and 80 contact hours of the medical coding training. The employment isn't like you have to work 40 hours a week. It's just the total years. Amber Hunter says, hello, good afternoon. Is there a way to remove the A in CPC without taking the course? So when it comes to apprenticeship status removal, there's really kind of like 4 different ways you can remove the apprenticeship status. The first way, the old school way, is by getting 2 years of experience through an employer, working with CPT, ICD-10-CM, and HCPCS codes, and getting employer verification of those 2 years. Second way is you can eliminate 1 year through doing Practicode. Practicode is a module that you have to pay for unless you bought a big bundle with the AAPC that included it. Practicode is a module. It is lots of different coding cases. They are not multiple choice. They are more so fill in the blank. They are going to give you a case and go, we're not going to tell you how many CPTs or ICD-10-CM. We're not going to tell you what diagnosis to hook up to those CPTs or what modifiers you do or do not have to use. You have to just figure it out from scratch and code it and hit submit and see if you got it right. That can remove 1 year off the apprenticeship status removal. If you went through a training course where you got 80 contact hours of medical coding education, and you can prove that via a letterhead or a transcript, that can also remove 1 year. So the couple of ways that you can remove that is if you have 2 years experience, you could do 1 year in Practicode, or 1 year and the 80 contact hours, or if you have 80 contact hours and you also have the Practicode completed, then that can remove your apprenticeship status. That's the only ways that you can remove the apprenticeship status. There's been talk with the AAPC over the years of like, hey, we're going to get rid of the apprenticeship status. Everyone hates it. And it's been going on for so long, and that I'm like, I'm not holding my breath for it anymore. I'll believe that they're going to remove that when I see them actually remove the apprenticeship status. I know some people that I've talked to that have worked on boards and things have been in support of it, but I think it's very multifaceted of, what do we do with the people who are currently in Practicode if we get that taken away? What about the people who like just did it yesterday? Maybe one day they'll figure it out. I feel like they might be getting closer, but we'll see. Amber Hunt says, so schooling can remove 1 year. Schooling can remove 1 year off the apprenticeship status removal as long as you can prove that you did 80 contact hours. That's the key. So if you did self-study, it doesn't count. If you went through a community college where they can give you a transcript and it shows that you had 80 contact hours of medical coding training, then yeah, if you went through a program through an independent instructor, or you went through a program through Preppy, or if you went through a program through the AAPC, in those cases, that will remove 1 year off the apprenticeship status. Dr. LMAO says, in your opinion, how hard will it be to get hired as someone who is not currently in the medical field and unable to leave my current job? Is it all just playing the networking game? You're going to hear a lot of negative comments online. I don't think there's any more negative comments than you would get for most other industries out there right now. We're kind of, to be honest, in a hard job market right now. I mean that's just kind of how it is. We're still early in the new year, So, there's still some feelers to figure out, like, how things are gonna progress now through 2026 as far as employers. A lot of times, they will get through the new year, and that's when they start, evaluating and posting new jobs and stuff as everyone's settling back in. Um, but I think it's still very possible. I just think that, you have to have a strategy. It can't just be, well, I'm going to finish this training and then someone's going to hire me. It has to be, okay, I'm going to finish this training. I'm going to get my resume together. I'm going to start going to my local chapters and networking. I'm going to set up a LinkedIn profile. I'm going to start tracking the jobs that I'm applying for. I'm going to ask for feedback for any interviews that I have. What can I improve for next time? And I think if you have the right strategy going in, I think it's better. Unfortunately, we do have people that, you know, will go online and they'll complain, "Oh, I can't find a job. I can't find a job." And I've had people who have expressed this to me and took one look at their resume and went, "Oh my God, like I can see why maybe you're not getting hired." And there's other considerations out there. You talk to some places and they're like, well, the application tracking systems now are just robots talking to other robots. So there's a lot of considerations there. So what do I think it will be easy? I don't think it will be easy because I don't think the job market right now anywhere is kind of easy. Short of maybe if you're looking for a job working in service, like if you're an RN or an LPN, or if you want to get into plumbing or something like that. But, a lot of computer-based jobs is a little difficult right now. Are there job boards you recommend when searching for CPCA roles? Yes, there are. So, first, I would say our good buddy Indeed.com. What I recommend when you're looking for a medical coding job, instead of searching like CPC or CPCA, I've heard some people say like search CPCA, but what that's going to pull up to is all the jobs that say no CPCAs, like they won't take them. So, what I recommend is go in here and search ICD 10 because that is a skill set that a lot of jobs are going to look for that maybe aren't necessarily titled medical coder and not necessarily titled medical coding specialist. So you can see when we look ICD-10, we have per diem coding, coding specialist, outpatient coding, clinical documentation auditor, medical coder. But we're also going to see some other positions out here. Medical biller, prior authorization specialist. So there's positions out here that the title's not medical coder, but they want someone that has your skill sets. So Indeed is one of them. Another one I would recommend is there actually is an AAPC job board, jobs.aapc.com. So if we go to the AAPC job board at jobs.aapc.com, plenty of jobs there. Now, there are ways to filter here through the entry level jobs. The problem is not everyone, when they're posting these positions, filter them appropriately. And TikTok for you, this is jobs.aapc.com is the AAPC job board. So you can see here we have all of these positions up here listed. There's like thousands of positions. But when we kind of want to go down and filter by experience, this level, the intermediate manager, et cetera, doesn't all add up to everything that's up here. So there's a lot of job postings, but unfortunately they haven't really set the parameters correct in order for them to filter correctly. But you can do that if you're looking for remote jobs. What you can do in here is just type in remote, and that'll just give you all of the different remote jobs. I don't think this is right either. 18 jobs found in remote, that doesn't seem quite right. I think some of them probably listed their location. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, there's a lot of positions up here on the job board, but maybe not set with the right parameters to filter them appropriately. The other thing, so Indeed, APC job board, Jobs, Google Jobs, and LinkedIn. Those are the other ones I would recommend. Jazz Harris asks, "Is Preppy worth it?" I absolutely think that Preppy is still worth it. It depends, though, on what you're looking for. If you're looking for, "Hey, I want all the bells and whistles, ship me physical paper books because that's what I want. I want my membership included, my certification exam included. I want to meet with an instructor every week. I want a coach to meet with me." All of those extra bells and whistles are going to wind up costing more. That's not what Preppy is designed to be. Preppy is designed to be a budget-friendly option for people who are like, "Hey, I got a busy lifestyle. I got kids to take care of. I got elderly parents. Like, I need something that's flexible and works, for me and what I got going on, and I wanted to like, I wanna have immediate access. I wanna go through the lesson plans according to my timeline. But I'm not sure, maybe I wanna take the CPC, so don't bill me for the stuff that I'm not sure about yet. They're designed to be a budget-friendly option, but give you as much as they can within that budget, which is why they give you ebooks instead of physical books. So your textbook is gonna be in ebooks, your code books are gonna be ebooks. Everything's gonna be on demand, though, so you can have access to it, when you want. But if you want a tutor or something else, like, that's gonna be included in there. But they do have externship opportunities, which a lot of programs do not offer anymore, or some of the other programs like the AAPC, their externships are only included if you meet certain criteria and pay the top tier $5,000 plus program versus Preppy, which is, I wanna say $14.99. Hold on. Preppy is currently, hold up. $15.99. $15.99 if you pay in full, and you wanna save some money and pay in full. If you pay the $15.99 and check out and use the code Contempo, using the code Contempo at checkout at preppy.org can save you $100, but only for the pay in full option, not for the payment plan. Now, if you want the payment plans, they do have payment plan options, which I personally think is better than having to go and get into student loan debt because I've been there, done that, and it is not good for anyone. There's a lot of complaints online that people went out for some college degree program and, they paid all this money for it, and they've probably, in student loans repayments, paid double what they actually took out and still have payments to make. So it's, uh, I could talk all day about student loans and that. But in any case, yeah, I absolutely think Preppy's still worth it. I think they are a great option. They do sponsor the channel, so I do wanna let you know that I do have a financial stake in them. If you don't like that, if you're like, "Victoria, stop recommending stuff to me that you get paid to recommend," like, check your local community colleges because sometimes they have programs that are really good. Some of them, though, they just plug in Ed2Go, which is kind of like a they pull it off of the shelf, off of a box, and give it to all kinds of different colleges. It's not a terrible program. I have had some people tell me, though, that they think it's terrible, but it's an okay program. So look for that. If it's the Ed2Go, it's kinda, you can check your local tech schools. I would not recommend, though, if you're going to a tech school and just getting a certificate, I wouldn't recommend paying more than, like, $5,000 because you, again, can go right to the AEPC and get that top tier program from them for $5,000. If you're like, just, I want the training directly from the person who's going to administer the certification exam, you can go right to aepc.com and get training. There's other options out there. There is AMCI, there is Coding Clarified, there's Danita over there. I can never remember her program. There's CCO. I've gotten training for different certifications from cco.us for my specialty certifications because they're great. So there's lots of other options out there. So do a little bit of research and kind of figure out what fits right for you. Is there a payment plan option for AEPC certification examination fees? That's a good question. I know they do partner with a firm, but I've never tried it with the certification exam fees. I think they do with membership dues because I kind of remember seeing the Affirm at checkout when I went to renew my membership dues. I'm gonna give it a go. I don't wanna flash this on my screen, though, because I know when I check out, it's going to show my address and I don't need to share that with the whole internet. But let's see what I can do here. Training and events. Let me see if it lets you. Prepare for a certification exam. Plan and schedule your exam. Let's see what it lets me do. Add to cart. And yes, you can do monthly payments for your certification exam and your membership dues with a firm. Let me just quick switch over. I want to just double check that it doesn't have my address on the screen before I switch over. Now, you do have to qualify, but I think a firm takes just about everyone. But if you can see here, I have the CPC electronic exam attempt in here. I don't know why it does Victoria Mole instead of Victoria Vo, because I have it on my account as Vo. But in any case, yeah, you can check out with a firm. So if you are having trouble getting the money up front for your certification exam or your membership dues, you can installment pay them. At least that's what it's showing online. So I might have to make a whole video about that, because I have had some people say that they can't afford their certification exam. And apparently I didn't even think about that. I'm so glad that you asked that question, because yeah, apparently you can installment pay them. Let me get back out of there. I graduated from a medical coding program 3 years ago and took the exam a year after, but failed by a small percentage from what is required. What do you think is the best way to study for the exam? What I would recommend is look out for when they have those package deals. A lot of times, the AAPC, if you buy an exam voucher, twice a year, they'll offer like a bundle where if you buy the voucher, they'll include a study guide and practice exams. I don't think they have it right now, so they might not offer it again for a few months if you can wait. That's always a great option, because then you're already set up, like you've got your study guide, your practice exams to kind of refresh your memory. And the study guide is really concentrated. Like they focus on the concepts. Like here's the concepts that are very likely to appear on the CPC exam. So you should probably know these particular concepts because they might appear again, right? So I would recommend the AAPC official study guide. Go through that. If you want to refresh a little bit beyond that, like you kind of like want to kind of go through the training again, there is a medical coding book that sometimes you can find at your library called Step by Step Medical Coding. You can also, I think, rent it possibly on Kindle, and you might be able to rent it on Vital Source Bookshelf. I'll bring up the book. I actually think I have it linked in the video description on YouTube. So if you go to the YouTube video description, there's a link to all of the book recommendations, Step by Step Medical Coding. That is a great textbook. And again, sometimes you can borrow it from the library. It's in circulation at my local library if you want to go through that. But I would recommend, at the very minimum, study guides, practice exams. See how you do on the practice exams after going through the study guide. The study guide also has some practice questions at the end of it as well. So you can go through those, see how you do on those. So, maybe if you want to just buy that and then see if you need the practice exams. But that's what I would recommend if you're only kind of a few days out. Oop, yeah, Hebe says, yes, on Vital Source, I rented it for 180 days. Very cool. Let me see what the price for that is, if they have it listed here. Let's see, the 2026, I think, just came out. The 2020, oh, here we go. So yeah, you can go on Vital Source Bookshelf and you can rent the book for 180 days for $40.64. And that's the ebook version. Yeah, so not too bad. I think you can also there's a medical terminology book that I recommend. And I think you can rent that too. Medical terminology and anatomy for coding. That one right now is only on the Lifetime, $85.99. But that's a really good book recommendation too, because this book, you have all of your while you're learning med term and anatomy, they're kind of tying it into coding scenarios. So while it doesn't really teach you medical coding, it kind of gets you prepared as you're learning med term for like the next step when you're learning medical coding. And that's available on Amazon as well. I have that linked in the video description on YouTube. I don't know what the heck happened to my Facebook feed that it just decided to poop out on me today. Why is my Speechify keep coming up? But yeah, I think that's a really great book too. If you're watching on TikTok, my book recommendations, if you go to my link in bio, I have them linked there on my Amazon storefront. I purchased a 2024 AEPC study guide secondhand for my exam in December. I felt it provided adequate information as a refresher after my community college program. And that's actually a really great point. If you can find something secondhand from 2024 or 2025, they really don't change the study guides or even the textbooks a lot from year to year. There was a period of time where I would purchase them every single year, and then I would literally go through page by page and highlight what has changed. And we're talking a couple paragraphs. So if you buy a study guide, even if it's from 2024, I probably wouldn't go more than like 3 years out. While the codes themselves have changed, a lot of the concepts haven't. So 95% of the study guide will probably be the same as it is now as it was in 2024. They don't like rewrite the whole thing. They just figure out, okay, well, this sentence here and this code here and this sentence here, and maybe we have to add a paragraph or take a paragraph out because something changed with an insurance or something. So, is it the end of the world if you have study materials from a couple of years ago? Probably not. The biggest changes we saw were an evaluation and management changed, and that's been a couple of years now. So still valid study materials. Melanie says, I found your content so helpful in passing my exam. Your YouTube videos were part of my review pretest. Hey, awesome. I love that. Very, very cool. Julia Wilkins says, hi, is IVR coding a good start after completing classes? It would be a great start if you can get in with that. I personally think IVR coding is on the difficult side, but definitely good if you can get into it. Let me get into, I've been neglecting my Instagram people. Let's see if they've had questions coming in. Any freelancer job available in medical coding? There really isn't a lot of freelance work in medical coding, at least not at the entry level. If you are further along in your coding career, you can find more contract work or flexible schedule type of work where they're like, hey, we don't, you're contracted. You can work whatever hours you want as long as you are completing the task or working the 20 hours in a week or whatever. There is Code Health. Code Health, KODE, and I think their website is, I want to make sure I give the right address. Yeah, so codehealth.com. They have different options that are more like an Uber for medical coding, but they're fairly select about who they allow to work on projects. It is all US based, so you have to be a medical coder that is located in the United States, and you do have to complete some fairly strict assessments and then be approved by the organization. So it is a long process sometimes to get in for some of those positions that they have, but they are more of a freelance coding employer type of platform. Hudson Frank says, what employment would you recommend to work up to a medical coder after you get your certificate? I would say whatever you can get in the healthcare field, whether it being prior authorization, whether it is working in billing. My biggest tip is when you are searching on those job boards, instead of searching titles like medical coder, search for the term ICD-10-CM and see as you are pulling in those jobs, like what are the other options out there? There's jobs probably within revenue cycle, within authorizations, within the health information department. So there might be other positions where they're like, we want someone who has these medical coding skills. Your title's not going to be medical coding specialist, but that might be something that you can get in at that healthcare organization and then transfer eventually over to the medical coding department. That's actually how I got into medical coding when I started. So my whole career trajectory was I went to Reading Community College in Berks County, Pennsylvania for a certificate as a medical billing insurance specialist. And I got a job at the local hospital doing charge entry. Charge entry was their entry level position, where back in the day, I had one screen that just had what we called super bills on it. It was a list of all the services and stuff and diagnoses that providers commonly did, and they would check off and they would circle certain things, and then I would get those and I would just type the codes and stuff into the system. So one screen had the super bills, the other had the billing system, and type. Worked that for a while, and then they brought someone in that said, hey, like, if we need some medical coders, so if anyone's willing to train in medical coding and you pass the certification exam, we'll reimburse you the cost of the training. So that's what I did. I got my CPC. I went from charge entry specialist 1 to charge entry specialist 2 because of that, and I got a slight bump in pay. Could not move over for love nor money, just because like a lot of different situational things that were happening. So I wound up taking a second job teaching at the local tech school in medical coding. Did that for a while and then switched my day job over to a billing revenue cycle position at Lehigh Valley Hospital. And then within a few short months, was snatched up by the coding department. So sometimes it takes a little while, but it was definitely worth it. It was absolutely 100% worth it. So I went from there, then I got into coding for hospitalists. I started coding for surgery, started coding for plastics. That led up to a senior coding position, which then led to a supervisor of coding position at Lancaster General Health. Got tired of management and then went over to Penn State Health to work in auditing and education with providers. Some tales I could tell about shadowing providers. Dylan River says, if a doctor is still not using electronic medical records, would it be considered a red flag? Yeah, kinda. Sometimes I feel like when I see them not using medical records, like electronic ones, I'm like, oh, what are we trying to bypass here? Because the only place I've been in the past handful of years that have not used electronic medical records was my plastic surgery. Well, I don't want to say a plastic surgery practice, because they primarily worked in cash. Like, it was weird to look behind the desk and see all the paper folders of medical records. All right, I'm gonna hang out for just a couple more minutes answering questions, because usually I only stream for an hour, but we've got a good crowd today, so I want to stay in. Should I get different certificates to add on to my CPC? I can do risk adjustment at the moment. Yeah, I think absolutely. Like, if you first off are career driven and B, you can afford them, which we just found out going on the AAPC website, like almost everything you put in your card anymore, you can do monthly payments on with a firm. So say you want to get an extra certificate, but you're like, I don't have $800 or whatever for the training and the exam and the practice exams and all that right now. Apparently you can do installment pay on it. Because I mean, which I guess we should have anticipated. They are doing installment pay on like everything these days, right? So in any case, yeah. So the ones that I recommend a lot are the CPMA, the Certified Professional Medical Auditor, especially as we're seeing so much automation of systems with like even Epic now, where they're like, hey, we've got this system in place. We're going to kind of like pick suggested codes. And coders might be transitioning to more doing quality checks and auditing and validating or doing post-payment reviews. I think that's a great one to have in your back pocket so you're prepared for the next few years. So even if you're not like immediately looking for an auditing position, I think it's good to have it, because I've interviewed people for auditing positions as an employer, as someone, the hiring person, and as someone who's like, we're interviewing someone to add to our group or our team. And it sounds a lot better when you're interviewing someone and you go, okay, well, you want to work in auditing? And they go, well, yeah, I already have my auditing certificate. I've already completed that because I am so interested in auditing, versus someone who comes in and goes, oh, well, I was, I thought maybe auditing and I was thinking about getting my auditing certificate. It sounds a lot better. You're more likely to get to that next step, that next level, if you've already made those strides and gotten that certification and demonstrated some level of proficiency. What advice do you have for someone studying for their first ever CPC exam? I feel a little lost on where to start. One of the top tips I can give you is getting familiar with the platform as well as the questions themselves. So if you have materials that you purchased, like a textbook, or if you have a CPC study guide, at the end of that, that's practice questions. Put yourself in a situation where you're kind of mimicking that real exam environment and time yourself. Say, hey, I'm going to do 50 questions. I should be done with these in 2 hours. And, set all your distractions aside, put your phones away, get ready for that. The other thing I will recommend is the exam platform. When you redeem your exam voucher, there's going to be an email that they send you that has a link to show you what the exam platform is going to look like. So if you don't have those practice exams, which I do recommend the practice exams, but if you don't, they are videos that you can watch that the AAPC links you to directly. Here is how you navigate the exam platform. Here's what it's going to look like when you sign in. Here's how you pull up your calculator. Here's how you can pull up the timer or make the timer go away. Here's how you can pop out windows to make things larger. And that is going to save you a lot of anxiety of trying to figure that out on exam day, especially things like flagging questions. I've had people come to me and they say, Victoria, I don't know what you're talking about. There was no way to get back to my flagged questions. And I'm like, yes, there is. Maybe you didn't know where to find that on the platform, but that functionality is there. The questions that you flag, you go back to the content section and it'll show you all of the different categories on the exam, the questions that you have or have not completed, and which ones are flagged. So you can just click on the little flag and go back to it. So yeah, that's my suggestion if you're taking it for the first time. Also, don't forget, I have a whole playlist on the channel. My top recommended video, and I could have just titled this video, I swear I could have just titled this video, like, watch this right before you take your CPC exam. Like, or if you only have an hour to prepare for your CPC exam, watch this video. And it is called The Most Missed CPC Exam Questions. That's the top one that everyone tells me is the most helpful, has helped them out the most, that they've seen these concepts on the exam and it has helped them out tremendously. That is the first video you need to watch. I also have other videos in regards to CPC exam prep. I have CPC review stuff. I have case studies if you want them. I have a whole section or two on E&M because that's the one that a lot of people struggle with as well. Lots and lots of help on the channel. In any case, my voice is starting to crack now. I don't know about you guys. Like, my voice starts to crack after like a good hour of talking like this. But I will see you guys back soon. And gosh, I feel like I covered a lot, but also nothing. I will see you guys back soon for another live stream. I might have to do another one this week because questions are coming in. Anyway, lunchtime. I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, just keep on coding on.